Okay. The second topic I want to go into is the non-fumigant volatile organic compounds. You guys are involved in this because you are one of the select crops. Just a little bit of background first. What are VOCs, volatile organic compounds? What is the problem with the VOCs? Well, they contribute to ground level ozone or smog. What's the issue? The issue is the Federal Clean Air Act requires each state to submit a state implemented plan for achieving and maintaining federal ambient air quality standards, including standard for ozone. What's that mean in plain English? We got to keep our air clean, and VOCs are a big part of that. California areas do not meet federal or state ambient air qualities are called air quality standards are called NAAs or non-attainment areas, which means these areas could not meet air quality standards that were set forth. California Air Resources Board and DPR developed a plan to track and reduce pesticidal sources of VOCs. DPR is responsible for the agricultural and commercial standard pesticide products. Air Resources Board is responsible for pesticide and consumer products. Basically, the ARB and DPR are working together on these regulations. There's 4 non-attainment areas in the state: Sacramento metro area, San Joaquin Valley, Southeast Desert, and the South Coast. Basically draw a line right down the middle of the state, down toward Ventura, and those are the 4 areas. And then you get over into the desert. Okay. They basically were looking at a 12 to 20% reduction, depending on the non-attainment area, from 1990 levels, or approximately 18 tons per day. I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff that we wouldn't care about anyway. Pesticide formulations such as emulsifiable concentrates that contain solvents. So basically, here's what it comes down to. You've got materials that are currently being used that have a very high solvent level in them when applied. 2 that I pick on the most, and this is not going after either one specifically as good or bad, is Gold 2XL versus Gold Tender. So if you use Gold 2XL, which is obviously a pre-emergent, but it also has a really nice top kill action to it, that material has a lot of solvent material as the carrier for the active ingredient. That solvent off-gases and becomes part of our VOC problem. It's a volatile organic compound. That's our problem. It's not the active ingredient. The active ingredient is the problem. It's the material that's being added to that product that creates the problem. Okay? Gold Tender, same active ingredient, doesn't have that VOC product in it, and so you don't have the issues involved with the VOCs. Do they work differently? Yes, they do. Some products, the problem that we're having right now, as far as reactions from growers to these regulations are, well, I use Gold Tender and it doesn't work as good as Gold 2XL. Well, they're 2 different products. They have the same active ingredient, but they're going to require some changes in how you use those products. The Gold 2XL has a really nice top kill. You get a real good contact kill with it. Gold Tender won't do that. The top kill comes from basically the solvent material that's in the Gold 2XL. That's not in Gold Tender, so you're not going to get that top burn that you really like when you're using Gold 2XL. Does that make sense?
Can I chime in on that?
Sure, absolutely.
From Dow Agro Sciences. We sell Gold and Gold Tender. So he's right. Gold 2XL won't burn as good as a Gold Tender. I'm sorry. Gold 2XL burns a lot better than the Gold Tender. However, Gold Tender still does burn. I mean, if you have a big ass Malva plant like this, Gold Tender's not going to take it down. But if you have a small Malva, Gold Tender will take it down. And heat up the Gold Tender, add a crop oil concentrate with it, and any sort of penetrating adjuvant, and it'll help it get the Gold Tender almost what you can expect with the Gold 2XL.
Right. So, like I said, my What I'm trying to say is they're different materials. Don't expect the exact same result from those materials. Understand your materials when you're using them. So, okay. So, there's 4 products that are involved in this regulation that are currently in effect. Abamectin, gibberellins, for your grape growers out there, chlorpyrifos, which is your Lohr's band lock-on materials, and then oxyfluorophene, which is the gold tender materials. All of these pesticides with active ingredients are all of the pesticides with these active ingredients affected. Only those that exceed the threshold. Okay, so we now have, basically if you have abamectin, is every material affected that has abamectin in it? No. Only the high VOC versions with that material in it. How do I know the difference? Talk to your PCA, they're going to be your best source, or your dealer. They're going to be able to recommend you which way you want to go. The other influencing source, you can also go to DPR, dpr.org, cdpr.org. If you go to cdpr.org, there is a spot on their website that you can source high VOC products versus low VOC products. So you can find out what the names of those products are if you have any questions. But I would also talk with your PCA or your supplier. What crops does this affect specifically? There's 7 of them. So we have 4 materials on 7 specific crops. Alfalfa, citrus, grapes, walnuts, pistachios, cottons, and almonds. So basically, if you don't grow any of those crops or you don't use any of these products, don't worry about it. That's basically what it comes down to. But you have either any of those 4 on any of those 7, those are the specific ones we have to be concerned with, okay? When did this new regulation go into effect? Bless you.
Thank you.
It went into effect November 1st, but when did the restrictions actually go into effect? Well, they went into effect May 1st. So this past May 1st, these regulations went into effect on those 4 products, on those 7 crops. They go from May 1st to October 31st. After October 31st, you can go back and use either product with no restriction and no additional requirements. Okay, so what can growers do to reduce VOC emissions from the May 1st to October 31st in order to avoid any triggers or possible restrictions further? We encourage the use of the low VOC materials, use of solid or granular formulations if possible, and then spot treatment, or they also call target sensing equipment. So are you all familiar with the material, those machines that can, it hits green and it sprays, when it hits brown it shuts off? That's target sensitive equipment. You can use those. So if you use that, you're reducing the amount of VOC material. If you choose to use the higher VOC material, you can use those type of equipment. It will reduce your amount of use because you're not just broadcasting over the entire field. Hold on just a second. So once again, just addressing the target sensing equipment. If you have that kind of equipment, that will reduce and lower our VOC use in the valley. So I can see my whole source of info here. Okay, so just for some comparison's sake, low versus high, low VOC versus high VOC. So when you're dealing with, say, abamectin, if you're using Agrimec, that has a VOC level of 55% versus Agrimec EC has the higher value. Agrimec SC only has 6%. So you see how there's that big change in the solvents and the materials that are used with those materials when you're used. Lohr's Band 4E versus Lohr's Band Advanced. Same active ingredients, just different levels of solvents when used in the materials. Pro-Jib versus Pro-Jib water soluble, 94% of the soluble solvent equivalency, 4% in the soluble granules. So, goaltender, goal versus goaltender, goal 2XL 62% solvents, goaltender 80%. So it drops tremendously. So we encourage, DPR encourages, everyone's encouraging during that May 1st to October 31st time frame, let's work to try and keep those VOC levels low. And we won't have any further problems, essentially. There is website-based tools on DPR's site. If you want to calculate or see what materials you're using, if they actually fall into a high or a low VOC category. So please visit their site. If you put in VOC, go to cdpr.gov, put in, there's a little search window, you put in VOC, it'll take you right to the proper page and it'll give you all the information you ever wanted to know. Go through that. Okay. Are there any exemptions to the non-fumigant regulations? Yes, there are. High VOC applications are allowed for chlorpyrifos to control aphids in cotton, gibberellins at no more than 16 grams active ingredient per acre, oxyfluorophene, the goaltender, at no more than 1/8 of a pound active ingredient per acre. If there's ever a Section 18 or a 24C that's available, those are exemptions also. And then you can also use the precision spray equipment that will create an exemption when using these products. Okay, dealer requirements, which you don't need to know. And the last section. Okay, so if you want to know if any prohibitions come into effect, well, why do I have prohibitions, Bill? So basically, if we continue to use high VOC products and we exceed the threshold that DPR has established, then there will become prohibitions, which means during that May 1st to October 31st, you will not be able to use those high VOC versions of those products at all, with the few exceptions that I just talked about. We don't want that to happen. So what our office, what DPR's, that's why we're setting up this information, is so that you can make proper choices to use low VOCs when possible. Let's keep our overall VOC use low, which we've been actually doing a pretty good job of. Keep that level at a lower level. As long as we don't exceed our limits, then we can maintain the use that we have currently. Now, as far as growers go, the only thing that's required of you to use those high VOC versions of these products, so you say you want to use Gold 2XL after May 1st, what do I need? You need to have a rec from a PCA. That's the most important thing you have to have. Even if you have the product currently in stock, I keep a case always. I've always got it ready to go in case I need it. Excuse me. Even if you have it in stock, you have to have your PCA write you a rec from May 1st to October 31st to use that Gold 2XL or any high VOC product prior to use. Okay? After October 31st, if it's a non-restricted material and you have it in stock, go ahead and go. But from November 1st to April, end of April, so November to April, no requirements on anything. From May to October 31st, high VOC, you must have a rec. Okay? Even if you have it in stock. So if you're currently buying something, you're buying new materials, you're buying gibberellins, you're buying Lorsban, you're buying these materials, you might want to consult with your PCA and say, hey, what are my options? Do I have high VOC options, low VOC options? Low VOC options do not require a recommendation. Only the high VOC. And only for that time frame on those crops that I mentioned. Okay? So it's currently in effect. Most of the PCAs and dealers are aware of it. They all should be aware of it if they're not already. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask my office or your dealer or supplier. They should have all that information available to you. How does a grower find out if the high VOC prohibition is in effect? You can sign up through DPR. They have a notification. If you go to DPR, once again, they have a spot where you can sign up that says notify me. It'll tell you whether the high VOC prohibitions go into effect or if we're just as we are right now, which they are not in effect, only the requirements from May through October. Or you can always contact your local ag commissioner or your PCA. Okay, so one more time, just so we all know, and I apologize, we'll make sure we have a projector if we go through this again, but what crops are affected? Obviously this crowd is going to be alfalfa is the number one, but it also affects almonds, citrus, cotton, grape, pistachios, and walnuts. And which products are affected? The high VOC versions of abamectin, chlorpyrifos, gibberellin, and oxyfluorophane. And if you have any questions, you can always go to DPR. They have a list you can check out, or you can always call my office. We'd be more than happy to help you. If you're a Fresno County grower, or even if you're a Merced County grower, you can always contact our Fireball office, which is right next to the courthouse in Fireball. They'd be more than happy to help you also. The time period, once again, May 1st through October 31st. And currently, there are no prohibitions as far as the use of high VOC materials. You just need to have that written recommendation prior to use from like May 1st through October 31st. And once again, the exemptions: chlorpyrifos for aphids on cotton, gibberellins no more than 16 grams AI per acre, oxyfluorophane no more than 1/8 of a pound per acre. Now this is only if we had an actual full-on prohibition, which we don't right now. And then precision ag sprayers, section 18s and section 24s. Okay, so low and high VOC products may continue to be used all year long, but a recommendation is required for high VOC products from May 1st to October 31st. What's the time period? Anybody? May 1st to October 31st. If I haven't said it enough already. And then it's on the products we discussed earlier. As of right now, May 31st, May 1st, October 31st, 2014, there are no prohibitions, just the current restriction of the recommendation. And I would say it would probably be okay for 15 too. Also, usually the trend we've been seeing is a lot of these products have been tailing down. There's better chemistry out, so a lot of these products have been tailing off, so I think we'll be okay for 15, but we'll know about that later in the year. As of right now, 14, we're okay. Does anybody have any questions on the non-fumigant VOC issues? I know it's exciting stuff. Anybody have any questions in general? Anything you wanted to ask your local ag commissioner, and I'm here to answer.
You register for a business in your fireball office?
I'm sorry?
Can you register a business in your fireball office?
No. But you can do it through the mail. If you live outside Fresno County, we do allow folks to register their business. If you want to, I can either take a card or something, I can either email you or fax you some material. If you have a copy of registration from your current county, you can just line out what your current county is. Sometimes they'll give you copies. If you have a copy, put in Fresno. Registration for PCP, pest control businesses, is $50. So we just need a copy of your licensing, business license, your QAL, your equipment list, and an information form that we can provide you unless you got it from the other county, and you can mail that in for us. We usually let out of counties mail it in, so you don't have to drive all the way downtown Fresno, unless you really want to go visit there. Horse racing, California grown, But she got stepped on. He got stepped on. So anyways, anybody else? Any other questions? Just general, anything? Anything at all? It's your chance. All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, guys.